Hi, this is Marek from Tryb. Today I would like to show you a game called Dawn of Ulos. It's a game published by Thunderworks Games, and thanks for sending it for review. And this is an economic game for 1 to 5 players set in the role-player universe where you play as gods who influence the life of mortals. There will be different factions on the map, and you as the god will influence these factions, make them stronger or weaker, and push them to combat in order to score the most victory points. Now I would like to show you how the game plays, and then I will tell you my opinion on this game, pros and cons of Dawn of Ulos. This is Dawn of Ulos during play. This is not the beginning because I wanted to add more things to the map, so you will see how the game looks like during gameplay. The main part of this game is this huge map where you will place different tiles. You have tiles. You will always have 3 tiles in your hand. You will place them. You will add them to the map. On the map, there will be camps of different factions. Each time you play the game, you will choose 5 factions from 10 available in the box, and these factions will have this plastic camps that you will place on the board. You will make the different factions more powerful by expanding their terrain. You will be able to gather the rift tiles, and if you gather a rift tile, you will be able to use a one-time ability. And on the top of the map is this power board. On the power board, you will track the strength of each factions that are available in a game. You have the track, and you have 3 rows. This one is territory, and it shows how big is the territory of a given faction. Here you have the strength of the faction and spoils. Basically, the strength is the cost of cards if you want to buy cards from each faction, because each faction, apart from this token that you place on the board that shows you a picture and 2 terrain tiles that are required by this faction, and each faction has got this plastic camp that will be placed on the map to expand their territory. Each faction also has got a deck of cards, and all these cards for one faction are exactly the same. They show you a picture, the terrain that is required to expand their territory, and a one-time ability that can be used in the game. And if you would like to buy the cards, you have to pay the cost equal to the strength of this faction. If you will sell the cards or use the cards for its ability, you will gain money equal to the spoils value of given faction. So basically, you should buy cards when they are cheap at the beginning of the track. For example, the goblin cards here, they cost 4 strength. But if the goblin will advance on this track, and then you will use the cards from goblins, you will get 7 gold for each. So this is a game where you should try to buy low and sell the cards high. As I said, there are different cards for each faction. The cards have different abilities that you will be able to use during the game. And the goal of the game is to buy cards, use cards, sell cards. The cards can be used for their abilities or during combat to add strength to the fighting factions. And this is how you get money, the favor tokens, and they are also victory points, because this metal coins that I have here are used to, you can use them to buy cards, but you will also you will get them by spending cards, by selling cards, and they also are the victory points that you will calculate at the end of the game. When the game ends, if at any point one of the factions goes to the last spot here, it says legendary, and you will flip this token to the side with the crown. And it means that this faction is a legendary faction. It got 15 territory tiles, and it's very legendary. If at any point 2 factions are flipped to the legendary side, the game will end and you will count your points. Other way to end the game is when all the development tiles are depleted, so all are used on the board. There are no more development tile to be taken by players. This is another way to end the game. So what comes first? Either all the development tiles are depleted, or two factions go to advance to the legendary spot on this power track. What you can do in your turn. You will always have 3 development tiles, and at the start of your turn, each player gets this handy reference sheet. This is your character, but only the pictures are different. They don't have any special abilities. And here you have the summary of your turn. At the start of your turn, you have to choose one of the tiles. You shouldn't show them to other players. They are secret, and you should keep them flipped down. You will choose one of the tokens, one of the tiles, and you will add the tile to the board. And you can, if you want to add a tile to the board, you have to cover the exact terrain terrain images that are printed on the map. So I have a mountain and a forest, and I could put it here. If you place a development tile and it's not connected to any of the factions here, nothing happens. If you, for example, place a tile like this, and there is a faction without a camp on the board, you can place the camp of this faction on the map. The faction will advance, and as a reward you will get 1 card from this faction. If a faction is not on the board, it doesn't have a camp. It doesn't have a camp at the start of the game, but it will also, the camp of a faction will be removed after combat if the faction lost the combat. You cannot buy and you cannot use and sell cards from a lost faction. A lost faction is a faction that is on the left side on the board and it doesn't have a camp on the map. But you can also add a tile in order to make a faction bigger. For example, I have the goblins here, and this is their camp. The camp shows that they like forest and this, you can say, I don't know, mountains or desert terrain. And if I take this tile and I will add this tile at the start of my turn here, I will make the goblin terrain bigger, and because I have added terrain tile with the terrain goblins like, because they like this desert terrain, their territory will expand. Because I have 2 types of this terrain that I added, they will go from 2 to 4. And this is the way to make each faction more powerful. You should add the development tiles with the type of terrain this faction wants and likes. So at the start of your turn, you will place 1 tile somewhere on the board. The next thing you can do is you can buy up to 3 cards from the market. And as I said, you can only buy cards from a faction that is not lost. So the faction must have a camp established somewhere on the map, and you can buy up to 3 cards. Cards from one faction, 1 card from each faction, however you like, up to 3 of them. The cost of a card is the strength of a faction. So if I would like to buy cards from Ratfolk, their strength is 2. So if I want to buy 3 Ratfolk cards, I will pay 6 coins to the bank. But if I would like to buy 3 cards from Sheki faction, they have strength 9, I would have to pay 27 coins. So this is a lot. So you can choose which cards you want to buy, up to 3, and pay for them. And you will take them to your hand. If you don't want to buy cards, you can use one of the cards that you already have in your hand for its ability. And the cards, they have different abilities. As I said, there are 10 factions in the game box. Each time you play the game, you choose 5 of them. For example, Sheki. For every 2 Sheki power, 2 Sheki strength, the strength from here, you may move 1 visible tile to a different position. Or you have the orcs. For every 2 orc strength, you may add 1 pillage token to a visible space in an occupied territory. Pillage tokens are these cubes. If you place a pillage token on one of the hexes on the map, the hex will not count as any type of terrain. So this is one of the ways to make a territory of your opponent smaller. Not your opponent, because you don't play as any of the factions. You are a god who influences all the factions, but this is a way to, make a hex, remove the terrain type of a hex to play a pillage token. So, if you choose to play a card, you will play this card, you will use its ability, you will discard this card here, but you will also gain the spoils value of this card faction. So if I played an orc card, I will get 6 coins from the bank. If, for example, I bought this card that I just played here, when it was the strength was 2 of the orcs, then I bought this card for 2, and now I sold this card for 6. And this is one of the ways to gain coins, and coins are victory points. So you can either buy 3 cards, or you can spend 1 card for its ability and to gain the spoils value. And at the end of the turn, you have to randomly take 1 of the development tiles, so you again have 3 in your hand. And this is basically your whole turn. You will place a tile, you will buy 3 cards, or you will use 1 of the cards you already have for its action, and then you will draw a new tile. At some points in this game, there can be a conflict, because if you add a tile to a territory, and by adding the tile, 2 different territories of 2 factions will connect with each other, there will be combat. And during a combat, first you will calculate the basic strength of each faction. Goblins and Sheki are fighting with each other. Goblins, they have strength 5, Sheki, they have strength 9. Because I initiated the combat, I will choose who is the attacker. And this is important because in case of a tie, the attacker will win the combat. So let's say I will say that Sheki are the attackers. They have 9 power, 9 strength, the goblins have 5. And now I can play cards from my hand to make each faction that fights more powerful. But not only I can do it, but all players playing the game. So every player who plays the game can secretly decide if he or she wants to add cards to the combat. Because if you add a card of one of the factions that is fighting, each card will give them 1 additional strength. So now you can decide if you want to play goblin cards to make them more powerful, so they will win the combat, or you can use Sheki cards to make Sheki more powerful. You can even place cards from the factions that don't fight in the combat, because you place cards face down. Maybe you want to make some chaos, and because you will decide that you play 10 cards and you play them face down on the table as a bluff, other players will not be sure what type of cards you are playing. So each player can decide how many, if any, which cards to play. Each player plays them face down, and when all players decided which cards they want to play, you will reveal all the cards, and then all the cards from the factions that don't take part in the combat go back to hand of the owners. But each card from factions that are fighting each card will add 1 strength to this faction's combat power. After you calculate all the cards, you will know which faction was victorious, because which faction has got more strength. At the end of combat, you will have to sell, discard at least half of the cards that you committed to each faction. So in this case, I placed 4 goblin cards, so I will have to discard 2, and I placed 3 Sheki cards. I will have to discard 2 because it's half rounded up. And this is the minimum number of cards that I will have to discard. But the good thing is that when I discard those cards, I will gain the spoils value of the factions that fought with each other. So for 2 goblin cards I will get 8 coins, and for 2 Sheki cards I will gain 14. I can sell more cards if I want to, but I don't have to. The important thing is that you sell the cards before you calculate the new territory. Because, let's say the goblins, they lost the game. When they lost, they will be removed from the board. Their token will be placed on the lost side here, because they have no territory. You will flip this development tile, and this is how the Sheki factions gained new territory, because now the Sheki territory contains the old territory and the new that they won from the goblins. And maybe they will gain power, because the new territory that was added to their old territory may contain the terrain that they want. And this is how they can advance to the legendary side. But because the goblins are here in the lost pile, all their cards basically lost the value. So maybe before you calculated the winner and loser, you maybe wanted to sell more goblin cards from your hand. And this is basically how you play the game. You will buy cards when they are cheap, you will try to sell cards when they are expensive, maybe you will initiate combat, and this is how you can spend more cards from each faction to gain the spoils value in coins. And if 2 factions go to legendary side, the game ends, or the development tiles, when they are gone, the game ends as well. At the end of the game, you will also sell all the remaining cards from your hand for the strength value of each faction. If this is a legendary faction, you will gain 2 additional coins for each card, and the player with most coins wins the game. The coins are called favor, from what I remember, but I just say coins. And this is how you play the game in a multiplayer mode. If you want to play this game solo, you will play against Warden of Wayward Souls. This is your opponent, and this opponent is using this lantern deck to perform its actions. At the start of the game, you have to insert 3, I will try to show it to you, 3 cards like this on the top area of Ulrir board. So you have 3 cards, 1, 2 and 3. Let's remove this 2 so it will be easier for me to show you. And this card shows you only see the upper part of this card. At the start of each turn, he will take the top card from the lantern deck. You will check where you should insert it. You have the first, second or third slot, and you place it at the bottom. And now you have top part of this card and the bottom part of this card as the actions for your turn. The top part shows how many tiles he will try to add to each faction. You have the strange symbols here, because for the solo game you have these 5 cards that you have to randomly assign to each of the factions that play in the game, so you know which faction has got which symbol, and then your opponent will take 1 random tile and it will try to add it to this faction. This faction is Sheki, so he will try to add this tile to the Sheki area, for example like this. He will gain this rift tile and he will make the Sheki even more powerful. This is first thing he will do, add a development tile to the board. If this faction, for example, wouldn't have a camp on the board, he will first try to place the camp on the board. Second thing he wants to do, he wants to buy cards. And this is the bottom part of this card shows you. He wants to buy 2 cards from this faction, and this is orcs. So he will pay 14 coins to buy 2 cards. If he doesn't have enough money, he will skip this part and he will try to sell or use 2 of his already possessed cards in his hand for the spoils value of them, because he will collect cards just like you during the game, and if he cannot afford to buy new cards, he will try to gain spoils from the cards he already have. This icon means he will randomly choose one of the cards and he will get double the spoils value of this card's faction. But he will not discard this card, the card will go back to his hand. When his turn is over, you will remove the top card and the bottom card will be moved like this. So you will rotate it. Normally you have 3 cards here, but I don't have as many hands. And this is how the game plays. Each turn of your opponent, you will take the top card of this lantern deck, you will insert it here, here or here, you will perform the top action, then you will perform the bottom action, and the cards from the bottom will be placed at the top. He plays almost the same way as you do. He will buy cards, he will add tiles to the board, he will score, he will gather coins, and he will try to score as many points as he can in order to win with you. You have 3 difficulty levels. The lantern cards, they have these numbers at the bottom 1, 2, or there can be 3. At the start of the game you have to take all of the cards, there are more of them in the box, with the corresponding difficulty level, shuffle them up, and this is the lantern deck. So on higher difficulty levels he may buy more cards, or he will be able to place even 2 development tiles for a faction in one turn. So this is how you play the solo mode, and this is basically how you play Dawn of Ulos. Let's go to the summary. So now you know how Dawn of Ulos plays. Let me tell you what I like and what I don't like about this game. So, my pros. You have quite unique gameplay, because usually when you play an economic game, Euro game, you play as one of the factions and you try to develop your own faction. And here in this game, you influence the whole map, all the factions, all the market, all the cards and everything. And you have to somehow influence everything that will be beneficial for you. You should buy cards when they are cheap, you should sell them when they are expensive, you should empower the factions that are most beneficial for you. So this is quite an interesting take on a Euro game. The replayability in this game is very good because you have modular board, all the development tiles that you put on the map are randomly chosen. You have 10 factions, and each time you play the game you have to choose 5 from the 10 factions. Each faction has got a unique ability, so each time you play the game it feels a little different, which is quite cool. The game looks very good on the table. You have the artwork similar to other role-player games. The board looks great, the tiles are made from thick cardboard. The box of the game has got an insert, so it's easy to store everything, you don't have to use zip bags. So I like how the game looks. And the game plays really fast and smooth. It's about 60 to 90 minutes to play this game, and the time doesn't change with more players, because basically one of the end game triggers is that the development tiles are depleted, and the number of the development tiles is always the same, no matter how many players there are. So, of course, with more players, maybe you will talk with each other more, and maybe some players will think longer. But basically, this game plays fast, and the rules are really easy to learn and to teach. You have to place one development tile on the board, and then you can buy up to 3 cards, or you can use one of the cards that you already have in order to sell it and to trigger its ability, and then you randomly take one new development tile, and that's basically are all the rules. Of course, when 2 factions meet on the map, you have this conflict, and this is the most, I would say, advanced part of the rules, where you have to fight with 2 factions, but the rules are very easy to learn, basically. And I like the solo mode, and I have to say that games from Thunderworks Games are really usually well developed in terms of solo, because Lockup is really cool to play solo, Dawn of Ulos plays solo quite well, you have Goblin Vaults, and I like that this company thinks about solo gamers, and the solo mode doesn't feel like, only created to put 1+ on the box. Here you have the AI, the opponent, it plays really fast, it's easy to play, you don't spend 5 minutes on automa turn, you have 3 difficulty modes, so the solo mode is a pro for me. Cons of this game, sometimes for me it's hard to say, when I look at the map, where one territory of a faction ends and starts, because you place the development tiles on the map. They look very similar to the map, okay, they have the white border, but sometimes you have to look carefully where you have placed tiles, where is one territory, where is the other territory, so the readability of the map is sometimes not perfect. Other thing that is quite strange for me is how the game scales. Because no matter how many players there are, you always use 5 factions, you always use 6 map tiles, and you always have the same number of development tiles, the small ones. So, for example, there are 48, if I remember correctly, development tiles in the box, and you use all of them every time you play the game. So each player starts with 3 of them. So, for example, with 2 players, you have 42 tiles left. So, considering that each turn you place one tile on the map and take a new one, each player will have 21 turns in the game before the tiles are depleted. And if you play with 5 players and each player starts with 3 of them, 48 minus 15 is 33. So if you think that you have 5 players, each player will take 7 turns in the game. So with 5 players, each player will have 7 turns, and with 2 players, each player will have 21 turns. So I think that the less players in the game becomes more strategic, you can plan better your actions, and you can plan how to influence the market. And if there are more players in this game, the games become more chaotic and more like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, let's add the tile here. You have less control over what's happening on the map. And the last thing is problematic, maybe only for me, but I'm not an advanced Eurogamer. I don't really feel that I have control over, you can say, my victory, because I don't influence only one faction, I have to influence all the factions and other players do the same. I don't really feel if my actions will give me more points at the end of the game or less. I'm not sure if you know what I mean. Because normally when you play an economic game and you only play as one faction, you have bigger control of what's going on, how you develop this faction, and you can probably see during the game if you have a chance to win or not. And in this game, I buy cards from every faction, there are some conflicts, I sell cards from different factions, and I'm not really sure if I will win when the game ends or not, and how many points I will score. But maybe this is just my thing. If maybe you are more advanced Eurogamer and you play a lot of economic games, it will be easier for you. To wrap it up, Dawn of Ulos is a very interesting game, very unique economic game. As I said, because you influence all the map and all the factions and all the cards and the whole market, it's very interesting. It's like, you know, buying stocks. You should buy the cards when they are cheap, you should sell them when they are expensive. This is how you win the game, how you score most points, and this is very, very interesting. If you are not experienced Eurogamer, it may be difficult for you to judge what you should do in order to win the game, but overall this is a fun game. It looks fun, it looks fine, plays solo really well. So if you like Euro games, economic games, fantasy game, because this is a fantasy game, I think that you should try Dawn of Ulos. Of course, this is not the best Euro game I have played in the recent months, but it's really, really cool, and I would happily play it again. Click the like button if you like this video, subscribe to my channel as well, I will be very happy if you do. Visit me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, you will find links in the description of the video. Thank you for watching, see you next time, bye.